Renegade thinkers. Today we're going to be talking about rocket ships, not the kind that Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are throwing up in the sky, but the corporate kind, the ones that have breathtaking growth rates. Imagine going from a dozen employees to over 1,000 in 7 years. Imagine going from a classic Israeli tech startup to a company with offices and customers around the globe. Now, the G-force of a real rocket ship is about 3 times the normal force of gravity, which is only survivable because astronauts have special G-suits and are trained to deal with this pressure. But marketers don't have G-suits. There is no place to train for this kind of business trajectory. Nope, you're pretty much on your own, reminding me of one of those great movie poster headlines, "In marketing, no one can hear you scream." And with that, okay, we know that wasn't the line, but with that, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Ran Avrahamy, the CMO of AppsFlyer, a company that is indeed a rocket ship. Hey, Ran, how are you?
Hey, Drew, I'm good. I love the intro. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm excited. Now, where are you for folks that are listening?
So I'm in Herzliya, which is the best way to describe Herzliya versus Tel Aviv, which is a little bit more well known in Israel, is like the Silicon Valley for San Francisco. So I'm like it's 20 minutes north from Tel Aviv, but like the larger type of tech companies are placed here in Herzliya, where all the cooler younger kids are in Tel Aviv. So
Like
yeah, I'm
you.
in Herzliya, Israel. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, like you, all the cool cats. So
Yeah.
let's, and oh, by the way, have you had your COVID vaccine yet?
I had my first one 10 days ago, and I have my second one end of next week or so.
Unbelievable. Israel is showing the world how to do it, like in so many ways. So, all
Yeah.
right. Well, let's go back to June 2014. What attracted you to AppsFlyers in the first place?
You know, it's a question I ask myself quite often because I took a bet, right? I just I had my own company previous of joining AppsFlyer. I founded my own company also in the mobile space, in the mobile app space. Just sold it to Google and really thought about, okay, what's going to be my next step? And I met Oren, the CEO of AppsFlyer, the founder and CEO of AppsFlyer, and we talked. And funny story, the same vision he pitched me 7 years ago is the same vision we have right now. And this is really about, I was fascinated about solving problems for marketers, and measurement and attribution is a big problem for marketers. And it doesn't matter which type of marketer are you, for B2B, for B2C, for enterprise, for small companies. Knowing where to spend your money, your marketing money, and your budgets, and what to do with your marketing campaigns is an ongoing problem we have for decades for marketers. So, go back 50, 60 years ago, it was a lot about spray and pray on the creative side. And now we have the tools and the technology to really measure marketing campaigns, and really understand what's working and what's not. So I was fascinated by the story, by the problem, and I was just blown away by the product market fit, which is the problem is huge. The product was and still is. Hopefully it got better, but was amazing in 2014. And that combination of all those three was just fascinating for me. So that's actually why I joined, and this is actually why I still am here.
Well, and so we'll get back to the marketing attribution and all that, because I think that's really important. But I want to sort of go on this on a step-by-step journey. And one of the things that's interesting to me about what you just said is that you knew mobile marketing, so you could see what was going on there, which I think is often people go to a startup and they're really taking a little, they're going into a category they had no experience with because so many startups are trying new things. So you had some insight, which helps me understand why you would take that risk. What was your challenge in 2014 when you started in marketing and you're only 12 people? What was your initial challenge?
It was really actually for several good years. Our sort of like mantra in marketing, may it be when I was an only individual contributor, until we grew. Let's just say until a couple of years ago, our mantra was be everywhere, because again, the problem was prominent. There was a huge problem in the market. The product was amazing. The market was just at the beginning, right? I think it was in the very much top of funnel or education level, less on the consideration one. Um, and we were one of the early companies into this category. We didn't even have a category, and I think the category was established only in the last couple of years. And yeah, I think I was focused on how we can deliver quickly, being agile, shift a lot of resources internally, the limited resources we had back then, which are different problems than we have now, right? It's just a different ball game.
Yeah.
And I
Go ahead.
yeah, no, I'm really trying to ponder back into 2014, and I actually tried to ponder back to 2020, and I don't remember which day or month or year or decade we are, but really going back 6-7 years ago, it was really about understanding the ecosystem. It's a very complex ecosystem, a lot of players, and eventually one of our core pillars since day one was to represent only one part of the ecosystem, which is the brands and the app developers and advertisers. And it's a very complex ecosystem, and I think one of those core pillars that again we have since day one until now is to be that unbiased, in order to provide pure data for measurement and for attribution, you need to only represent one side of the business. And we've done this since the beginning, and I think it was a challenge back then to see how we can focus on that and not getting distracted by a lot of noise that you have in an early day startup. And I'm very happy that we did it then.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I just want to point that the fact that you were able to stay focused, which I think is really hard for startups, because it's like, wait, there's a bright shiny object over there. We could go get that client. We could go get that category. So staying focused. But you said something also. You said be everywhere. And first of all, you're a tiny startup and you have no budget. So talk a little bit about in the early days, how you compensated. How do you be everywhere without a budget?
It's a really good question. There are a couple of ways of looking at it. First of all, there's the no budget, and then what we call, actually in one of our products, we call it zero budget marketing, right? How do you operate with a mindset of, you have $0 to spend on marketing tomorrow. You have your creativity, your connections in the market, organic traffic, organic social media, word to mouth, partnerships, etc. So on one side, we really try to maximize all of those, let's call it that, owned and earned assets that we don't have to pay for, meaning leveraging our partners and working together with our partners. Again, it gets a very complex and closed ecosystem. So working together with them, one of the first, I would say that the first one was a hack, and since then it became a thing, but was on the content side. Really early on, I would say 6 years ago, I think 2015 maybe was the first one. We did something that we still call today the performance index, which was working with all of our partners and ranking them based on their performance of both volumes of installs that they're getting and quality of the install they're getting for customers, and we broke it down. So it was a very robust report. And I think it was a good hack at the beginning to also leverage the relationships that we have. So, like every ranking, I have a popular saying I'm saying about rankings and about competitions, that I hate them until I win them. But in any competition or ranking, you have the top X, right? You have the number 1, the top 5, the top 10, and it depends on how you think about the process of making it happen. But eventually, there will always be companies that are happy with the rankings and they want to promote it themselves as well. I think G2 as a company is doing an amazing job of that. That's their business. They just released something this week about like best product categories. We actually won one of them. And and everybody in the company, we released it internally, and everybody in the company was so proud of this accomplishment. So they shared it organically in their own social channels, etc. So this is what we did back in 2015. It was a great success. Another, I think, funny story is about Oren, our CEO, tells that he did this actually, and not me, so I can't take the credit. But he bought, I think it was like $300 worth of Google ad coupons for $10 on eBay. And that's an amazing deal, right? And so those types of very like early age small startup hacks that you can do to really, but so it's a trade-off, right? How do you balance between focusing on your targets, and our targets was at the beginning, and actually till the day, was being customer first, putting revenue as a secondary KPI, not a primary KPI. We're a very customer obsessed company. So how do you balance that on one side, right? So staying focused, like laser focused on your target and what you want to achieve, while also playing very creatively and agile on everything that you own and can earn. So I think that was like the main thing that we've done at the beginning. And of course, it's different right now, right? Because the goals are a lot bigger and broader, and market share goals and revenue goals, etc. But I think one of the unique things about AppsFlyer and about marketing here specifically is that we've kept the same agile, creative, consistency type of mentality. So even if you have big budgets and very complex workflows and processes and technologies and content, still keeping that nimble and agile mindset of reacting to things that are happening in your industry super quickly, being able to release like really in-depth reports and insights on what's happening in the industry. So I think we kept that side of being a small agile startup, and of course, but we grew since.
Well, there's a huge amount to unpack there, and there's a lot I want to go back through, but we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna get after some of those really interesting insights. So stay with us. Hey, it's Drew, and I just wanted to do a quick mention of a new peer-to-peer advisory network I started last year called CMO Huddles. Every week, we're bringing together an elite group of CMOs to share, care, and dare each other to greatness. One CMO described Huddles as a cross between an executive workshop and a therapy session. If you're a B2B CMO and wish you could meet regularly with your smartest peers, just go to cmohuddles.com and book a time to talk to me to see if you're a good fit. Check it out at cmohuddles.com. Okay, we're back. So there's several things that you said there that I want to pause and sort of get at to. First of all, there's this notion of zero budget marketing, which I know a lot of CMOs listening to this show are going, okay, that's interesting. So, and that's all about earned and owned. And I know that you had in your early days, beyond the earned and owned, you did some guerrilla marketing. Can you talk about a couple of examples of that?
Yeah, sure. I think I probably have examples from the early days, but also example from the recent days of like during post-COVID, on how you adapt to like new realities, and you need to apply like guerrilla marketing tactics to that as well. So I would say, in the early days, I think one example that I gave was the index, and again, that's very specific to our industry, but thinking for early stage CMOs and startups, thinking how to leverage the ecosystem that you're in, right? I think I also gave the G2 example as a good one. I think they also did it at the beginning, but again, that's their product. So thinking how you can work with, like, create a win-win situation between you and it can be partners, it can be, other players in the industry. So I think that's a good example. I think another one is, and again, that's going back to 2014, 15, and I think the world has changed, but the world of, let's call it for now, like insights PR, right? Content is king. It was always king, and it probably will always be king, but I think it's a little bit more of a crowded king than it was back in the day. But a lot of stuff that we've done back in the day, and again, talking like 5-6 years ago, was to really be to play an advisory role for reporters, right? So to make sure that we feed reporters with interesting insights that we see within our data, that they can write about. So also we create a lot of like really personal and good relationship with the relevant reporters in our industry, and also that make sure that they come to you whenever they, you're already there and you're that trusted advisor. So they have that solid relationship of both, outreaching and inbounding for commentaries, etc. So I
By
think
the
that
way,
was
let
also.
me pause for there. I get
Please.
outreach from junior PR people every single day, and I will tell you flat out, less than 1 out of 20 actually provide value that I could actually go, oh, that's really interesting. Thank you for that. So I'm just going to put a little punctuation point. If you happen to be a PR professional and you're thinking about pitching a story, have real value and data like Ron is describing here. If you want to get media coverage, make their job easy. Give them great, fresh, unique content. I just want to put an extra punctuation
Absolutely.
point on that. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, Drew. And on top of that is get to know the person, right? The person you're pitching to, right? And it takes, in today's world, it takes minutes to quickly, browse through the person's LinkedIn profile, Twitter, social, news, mentions, etc., to understand what he or she is interested about, right? What do they write about? Is it even up their alley? What are the different types of angles? So, it's pitching on the PR side is just like selling, is understanding the value that the other side can get from you, and that's all. And if you provide value, it will be interesting.
Yeah,
It
mainly
sometimes, yeah, it's as
what
simple
I
as that.
see is spray and pray. That's what I see.
Exactly.
It's just they have a mailing list and they send it out and they hope that they'll get a lot of
Hope for the
coverage.
best.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we are so far beyond spray and pray. All right. Well, one of the things I think is interesting is you had this tremendous growth. I know that events were like every marketer, particularly in the marketing industry, events were a really important source of leads. They just were, because marketers like to go to events, advertising people like to go to events. The mobile world is mobile, so of course they're going to events. So suddenly in February and March of 2020, you could no longer do events. How important were events to your lead flow prior to the COVID pandemic?
Very,
Very,
very
like 50,
important.
like 50%?
Uh, I don't necessarily know that or remember the exact like percentage of inbounds coming from events in the days of yawn from like 2019. But they were very important, and not just because of the leads. We put a lot of emphasis on the brand side as well when it comes to events, on creating meaningful relationship with people and doing crazy stuff on the brand side, on being memorable, on giving a unique experience, on doing things different. And I'll tell you that, Drew, we were very famous for our events, very famous. It was someone called it our moat, right? And as you said, in a day like this, right, it got, no mas, no more events. And we had, and I call that in the early days of COVID, which is a year ago, which is insane. But in the early days, I call it the 5 stages of marketers' grief, because everybody was in denial at the beginning, and step by step we all got to acceptance. But that denial stage, let's call it February, March, April, probably those couple of months, which makes a lot of sense, right? Everybody ran like headless chickens of like, okay, now we're going to move this to summertime. It's going to be okay. And listen, nobody knew, right? Nobody could have imagined what's going to happen and how will this escalate pretty quickly. And I'm very happy that and again, we're not prophets. We didn't know anything. We just felt that this is not going to the right place. And I remember a meeting with my leadership team in I think March. So February, we had one of our biggest shows is Mobile World Congress, which is in Barcelona. It's 100,000 plus attendees. And that was planned to be end of February 2020. And we have everything set up. We had amazing concept and theme and booth and people. and travel booked, and everything was, it's like, and it's a big budget hole also. And we were actually one of the first companies that proactively decided not to attend. And you can only imagine, like, and I was very confident with the decision, even if it means a big chunk of budget basically lost. Because my operating mindset was, and again, it was very early days of COVID, was if I'm not talking about budget and leads and brand and whatnot, I'm talking about our own team. If I have one mother of an employee of ours, of a team member of ours, telling to herself, why this company is forcing my son or daughter to go abroad when everything is right now abnormal, lose confidence in the workplace of her child, that doesn't worth anything. That was actually the mindset behind canceling it proactively. And afterwards, everything collapsed and they canceled it on their side and they postponed it, et cetera, et cetera. But going back to your question, events, they were and still are a big chunk of what we do, and we do it pretty well. You know, I don't like webinars. I just don't like them, right? A lot of marketers try to portray webinars as they can replace events like this offline communication and engagement. They just can't, right? And I had this experiment a couple of weeks ago about searching my inbox for like the word webinar, and I've seen the enormous amount of like invites to webinars that I'm getting probably on a daily basis. So that won't do. So we really had to reinvent ourselves on that end, right? Both on the brand side and also as a lead gen dimension tool. And I think we managed pretty quickly to understand how to adapt to this new reality, and it's not coming back. And pretty quickly after canceling MWC, we had a marketing leadership meeting, and I asked them, guys, cancel everything you have until the end of the year, recover back as much budget as you can if you can have like cancellation policies, etc. Nothing's going to happen right now, right? If something's happened, we'll deal with it. We'll get back. But pretty quickly, we moved to a very like hybrid online type of, and by hybrid, I mean not online and offline, but within the online space, you have a lot of stuff that you can do. Some are going to the masses, like big online events or conferences, right? That you can do on yourself. You can sponsor a third party, etc. Plus, and this is actually the sweet spot, we had a lot of like very creative, smart, small, intimate gatherings. One example, I think we did this in Napa. So kudos to our North America team. So we took a group of like 15 or 20 customers and prospect type of bunch. We sent them, we sent them an invite. We told them what this is about. We sent them to their homes a box of really fine Napa wines, right? And with an invite and URL, etc., a landing page. And they came to this event, and it was like 2 hours, maybe. I think 75% of those 2 hours were fun, engaging. We put a sommelier in Napa, like recorded him live, and like did a virtual wine tasting. And the content part was just like, we had a thought leadership roundtable type of content just at the end. But it was a really good experience for the people attending. And it's not just yet another webinar. And we did a lot of those types of creative small ideas throughout the year. And I think they were really successful. That said, I can't wait to be on a plane again and meet people, because there's something so, the reason I personally love events so much, it's beyond that it's fun and it's engaging and it's a good lead gen and brand tool. That emotion when you do a production, right, your own event, company event, whatever, and you see, right, I vaguely remember that feeling of kicking off something in the morning, 9 a.m. You sit at the first row or stand on the side of the stage, and you see people's smiles, right? You see that reaction of like, and you're like, okay, now we're on, like, good. And the end result, sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. You get more leads, you get less leads. There's a lot of options of outcomes, but those types of small, very intimate, very human moments, I miss them a lot. And I honestly, I can't wait to get back to them.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to dive into something you brought up very early on, which is about measurement and attribution. So stay with us. So we're back. And one of the things that you mentioned early on in our conversation that you were customer first. And we know when COVID hit, some industries were really hammered. In other industries, if you were lucky enough to be in the cloud, business was great. But if you were in the travel industry, and I'm imagining you had customers in both, talk about, as a customer first company, how did that impact the marketing programs that you did last year?
Yeah, so it was really about being empathetic to the different types of customers that we have, understanding where they're coming from, what are their pain points and challenges. So I'll talk about it quickly from two different aspects. One, from a product standpoint, we shifted a lot of resources within the company, and we have a lot of engineering resources. So we shifted a lot of resources pretty quickly to tailor solutions to different industries, right? So it may be redeveloping our app and other like features within the product to adopt them for work from home, right? So that was super quick, communicated quickly. You know, it wasn't perfect, but again, make it work, and then we made it better. So that's on one side. Then on the marketing experience side, also being very empathetic on one side to both parties, to folks that have been hurt from COVID, like the travel industry, as you said, but also to ones that have high pressure right now of huge traffic, huge spikes. You know, they have their own challenges. So trying to identify both and cater to each of them in a different way was very, very important. And that, for a pretty big company, where at the time we're around 900 employees, as a mindset, doing those quick changes and shift was hugely important. I think was really appreciated by our customers.
So let's talk about that. So first product, get it, makes sense, got something out quickly that addressed the change in the place. Let's talk about, what did you do and say to your travel customers who were just in deep pain at that moment? How did you show that, express that empathy from a marketing standpoint?
So we talked early on about zero budget marketing, right? So we worked on the educational side with them. Some of them were like public blog post content, whatever. Some of them were like in a EBR, QBR basis of customer success marketing, working together with the specific customer or vertical, and gave them solutions, right? So I'm talking now beyond the financial side and, you know, spreading out payments and whatnot, but really working with them on zero budget marketing mindset, right? A travel company, an airline, you don't have flights anymore, obviously, right? What else can we do with marketing? And you can do as a brand, as a travel airline, or as an airline, with your owned and earned media, right? How can you maintain relationship with your customers, with your consumers, on the loyalty program basis, right? So they don't have flights, right? It's gone for the next 6 months. How can you retain them? Can you engage with them? We have our own like customer user experience, customer experience suite. So a lot about deep linking and user experience and flows. So how can you engage with them pretty quickly in this crazy times? So stuff like that, right? It's really dependent on the brand and on the vertical. But I think travel was a really interesting industry to tackle.
Interesting. And so, okay, so that's a difficult one. And you really went out and basically, some of those companies must have said, hey, we got to stop working, or we got to put the budget on hold. Was there any reaction to that?
Yeah, actually, we had a task force within the company of working specifically with every customer that was affected by COVID. And eventually, like in terms of churn, it was minimal, because we have a very simple framework as a company. We have two questions that we ask ourselves every time that we make a decision. One, does this decision make you more proud of working at AppsFlyer? So first question is about pride. Second, is this a customer-centric decision? Will this decision make our customers happier? That's the framework. Every question that you ask about product, marketing, sales, deal size, etc., has to come to that eventually. And that framework was actually the one that helped us go through this period together with our customers. It wasn't us versus them. It was us together. And I think that's maybe a small like sentence, but that's a big meaning behind it.
Yeah, and I love that. I want to zero in on employee pride for a moment, because I think in our pre-call we talked about you really only have one metric in the company, at least and that's from an employee standpoint, is do they feel proud of it? How do you actually measure that?
We have our surveys, right? Our internal surveys, and we ask team members, I think twice a year, and we measure that, and we do some sort of NPS about that. Actually the numbers we see are outstanding. I think the last one was around 97% of people at the company felt that are proud of working for AppsFlyer, and that's outstanding. And you ask yourself, okay, so if 97%, how higher can you go? But you can go higher. You can go to, there's 100. There's always room for improvement. But I think, again, it's a lot about the small stuff that you do on an ongoing basis with our employees, right? If, for example, we don't call, there's a lot of talks about employer branding. We don't do employer branding. We do employee branding. We spotlight them. We provide them with small, meaningful, personalized. It's not about gifts or anything like that, right? It's about showing them that we care, showing them that we work together. Every time that we have a big milestone, we celebrate it internally. We do an internal training about it, and we give people assets to share on their social media. And I think it was in the last funding round we had, our entire LinkedIn feed of people in the industry was filled with AppsFlyer people just telling their own personal story and how they are proud of the company, right? And people asking me, like, do you pay them? Do you incentivize your team members to share that? And I'm like, no. We provide them with a platform, with content, visuals, talking points, stuff like that. But they do their thing, and you cannot trick that. That it must be authentic. You cannot pay for that.
Yeah, it's so true. And most companies think about from a marketing standpoint, the priority is acquisition, then retention, then employees if they think about it. And of course,
no, it has to start with employees.
And talk a little bit about that. Help me, because this is like a paragraph in my book. Why is it so important that marketing needs to focus on employees first?
It's such a good question. We actually have a person in the marketing team. He's our head of thought leadership, right? And his job is to help everyone who wants to learn become a better storyteller, a better writer, tell his own stories. And there are like OKRs specifically, we need to help 60 people this quarter write at least 5 LinkedIn posts, right? And at the beginning, people were like asking, why do you do this? Why do you have a headcount for that? And it pays off so much, because the importance of marketing for being internal first, if your own team members are not your biggest advocates and biggest fans, you won't be able to make your customers and your prospects and your partners and the external circles their fans. First of all, and it's this fandom sticks, right? It's contagious, right? If people working for the company are so damn proud of your products, of your social responsibility, of your actions, of your content, it glows outside, and it's contagious. I don't have any other word than contagious.
Yeah, it's a scary word to use right now, but it is true. I can't wait for the transcript of this thing, because what you just said is absolutely going verbatim into, as I finish up the book, right in there, because certainly, and listeners know, I've been a long time advocate of employee first marketing, and certainly that may be the fuel of the rocket ship, folks. That is the fuel. I mean, we talked about going from 12 employees to 1,000 employees, and yet during the course of that time, I'm imagining, and you confirm this, that your retention rate was, obviously startups have burnout. There's no doubt. I mean, it's hard. It's a hard journey, but because you were customer centric, I'm guessing that you may have had less turnover. I mean, employee centric, less turnover, perhaps higher productivity, and certainly more advocacy as measured by your word pride. As a manager leader, as a chief marketing officer, that's gotta feel good.
It makes my job a lot easier.
Yeah, it does, right? Because it's easier to recruit, it's easier to retain, and the directive is clear. And I think
Absolutely.
what we've really talked about here is that while product was really important in this growth of the rocket ship, it seems like these two things, as you said, only two rules: pride, employees feel pride, and is it good for our customers? If you have something that simple and that clear, and every employee knows it, and your customer feels it, you might have a trajectory like the folks at AppsFlyer.
Drew, I gotta say, a lot of companies. I haven't built marketing at AppsFlyer as most marketers build marketing, right? I didn't start by typing, in Google day one how to build a B2B marketing strategy, and we have a lot of debt to date, a lot of debt, right? We don't do stuff as probably we should, but we focus because we have, and it goes back to simple like a messaging framework at the beginning, or a mission statement and a vision statement, and we didn't have that at the beginning. We were laser focused on those. We had the framework, right? That's our rescue box. And once it's very simple and everybody get it, it makes everything else more simple.
So, okay. So last question for you. Being a CMO at 12 people is a lot different than being a CMO with 1,000 people. Obviously, the company is much, much larger. The expectations of what marketing can do are much, much higher. You have a huge team by now. What would you say, how have you had to change in order to sort of with the company?
I think I've changed numerous times, and I don't know if it's every day or week or month or quarter or year, I need to reinvent myself. First of all, startups are hard, right? And burnout are hard, and it's a real thing. And I'm very happy to see in the previous couple of years, a lot of people talk about the psychology side of tech, right? Words that used to be very taboo, like depression, right? Or pressure related words, are very wide open. Like, it's okay to talk about them right now. And it's such a big and important change. And I think that making like Ran 2.0, Ran 3.0, Ran 4.0 every, single year, let's say, and on two sides. One, on a personal level, how do I keep keep being like in love with what I do? Because listen, I'm 35, right? I'm at the early mid of my career, right? I have a lot of stuff that I love and I'm passionate about, right? And I can do a lot of stuff. So how do I, because it's not about the incentive, it's not about the payout, it's not about the size of the team, right? It's about doing something that you really love. And I think, 7 years in, I can, and there are hard days. There are days that I want to stay in bed. And you know what? I tell to my team, you have those days. I mean, not now everybody stays in bed, but because the office is your living room.
Yeah,
but
look.
Yeah, exactly. I ask my team, you have one of those days, call in sick, right? Stay home, don't work, take the day off. You have two of those, fine, it happens. You have a couple of those, it's okay. But if you see this consistently, then you're probably not doing what you love, and you should do something else. And I apply that to myself as well. And I still find 7 years in, I find the things that I love are the things that I do are completely different than I did 7 years ago. But I find things that I love doing. And it's about passion. It's about seeing people grow, seeing managers become leaders, seeing things that we do are meaningful to other people, as we talked about a second ago, internal employees, external circles, etc. And it's really about finding that thing and how you can keep on like falling back in love with your job. That's just a big question that I put the focus on.
Well, there it is. All right. So all you listeners, I know at this moment, your workout is just about over. I had a conversation yesterday with two folks who are regular listeners, and they said, you're dead on. I do my elliptical for 45 minutes. So wrap it up, Drew. All right. Well, Ron, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Drew.
Renegade Thinkers Unite is written and directed by Drew Neiser. Audio production is by Sam Beck. Show notes are written by Melissa Caffrey. The music is by the amazing Burns Twins, and intro voiceover is Linda Cornelius. To find the transcripts of all episodes, future guests, or learn more about quite possibly the best marketing agency in New York City, visit renegade.com. And until next time, keep those renegade thinking caps on and strong.